I'm Clint, and welcome to Swatches Livestream number 41. I am, as I said, Clint Cearley. I'm an illustrator and concept artist, art educator, and welcome to the livestream. If you're watching this and recording, you might want to skip ahead a little bit because we're going to leave just a couple of minutes for people to join in live and make sure that they're not going to miss the beginning of the show. If you're joining us live, then feel free to put your comments and questions in the live chat, and I will try to answer them during the program. Otherwise, for this episode, we're going to be going over the concepts for the art challenge of the Seed of Renewal. Now, we kicked it off last week, and we're going to be taking a look at your submissions into the challenge. Now, you might be watching it and think, well, how do I get in on that challenge? Well, it's pretty simple. You need to become a Swatches patron over on patreon.com/swatches at the $10 tier or more, and I will review your image during the live streams. Also, you make sure that you're joining the Swatches Facebook group. Everyone is welcome to create an image and put it out on the group for just general feedback, but it won't be reviewed during the show. I'm going to switch it over to my desktop so we can see the images. And move this out of the way a little bit. Just rearrange stuff here on my desktop for a second. There we go. I'm sorry, Jacob, but I literally have every setting maxed out on the sound. I cannot make it any louder by any setting that I know of. Let me double check this to see if it reset over here. Output. That's all I can do right there. Input, output. Okay, so that's everything completely maxed out. Hopefully that helps. Let's see, and double check. No, it's on the right setting on the mic. Alright, so for this challenge, let's go back over what the outline for this one was. Yeah, I don't know why. When I record, I'm using other programs. I use either QuickTime or Screencast, and it records it at a perfectly usable volume, but for whatever reason, when it goes through OBS for live streaming, it just significantly reduces it, and I have OBS's settings all the way up. So, sorry about it. Maybe in the future I'll be able to figure out some other way around that, but as of now, I don't have anything else I can change. Okay, so the challenge outline was this. Is a action card as part of the fictional game that we use as the sort of basis that we're creating the challenges from. And it is the Seed of Renewal. It is same size as the Magic card, the ratio of 3,000 to 2,200 pixels. Show a large seed suspended over the ground. Emanating from the seed is life-giving magic that is spawning vibrant vegetation, and it is surrounding barren terrain. Maybe the magic can form in different ways. Experiment to see what works. No animals, just plant life. And you should have a mood of hopefulness, renewal, beauties coming from ashes, that sort of thing. In the context of our fictional game, it would allow the player to reclaim areas that have been corrupted or cursed and bring the nature back into it. So that is what everyone is trying to follow, and I did get some reference images there. We'll look at those as we need going into it. And we also got some good questions. I had asked for some questions on the Facebook group and got some of those. I answered the ones that were listed in the previous video as to what was already there when I was recording, as the time of recording. But let's go ahead and answer one or two, and I'll probably pause throughout the stream to just take a break from the critiquing to answer other questions. Zoe asks, there are a lot of opinions around about how to get paid for commissions as a freelancer, such as asking half up front, half at the end of the job, providing free sketches or not, and so on. What do you consider to be a smart way to go about this? This is a big topic, and she does qualify it here. When it comes to bigger studios employing freelancers, is there a standard one that you can expect for this kind of thing? Yeah, this is something you do need to pay attention to, especially when you're getting into the field. Something that you will probably be approached about is to do free sketches and pro bono work. I'm going to say turn that down. Don't do it. Don't give them free work. You wouldn't ask that of any other professional. You wouldn't go to a lawyer and say, hey, you know what? I've got a case going on, and I just need you to work for me free for about 20 hours. Then I'll let you know if I want to hire you. They would laugh you out of the building. It's nonsense. You don't treat professionals that way. They, as artists, have a portfolio. There's a reason you have a portfolio. It proves your ability, and you should not need to do free sketches beyond that. As far as how to handle the financing of it, if it is a bigger company, like I do work with Wizards of the Coast, with Magic, various other companies, those guys, they will pay you when the job is done. And so you'll start the project, you'll do the sketch phase, get that checked on and approved. You'll do the final image. Then once the art director signs off on the final image, you can then invoice the company. Then they will usually pay you 30 days later. So it's a big jump. At least with Magic, you'll have about 2 months for the final, then another month before you get paid. So you'll start a piece and then get paid for it 3 months later. That's pretty standard. If you're working with, I would say, smaller clients or individuals, say you're working for a independent author who wants a book cover done, then half and half is a really good system to work on. That, if you're going to charge them $500 for the full project, then you need $250 up front. Then once the piece is finished, what you do is you send them the final image, but a low resolution of it. Something that's not high enough for them to use in their final product, but big enough resolution that they can clearly see that the image is complete and it's good to go. And then once they see that final image, they can pay you at that point, and then you send them the full res image. Yeah, you have to just be a little more hedging your bets with those smaller guys, because you don't know who they are. You don't know how they handle money. Maybe they're the best author in the world, but maybe they're a terrible businessman. And unfortunately, things go sideways in those sort of situations, and you don't want to put yourself out too far on that. Okay, let's now move over to the images and take a look at those. And I'm going to just minimize that. We'll open that back up in a bit. Oh yeah, now Tanmay made a comment down here in the live chat. It says, what do you think about working in a studio versus freelancing? And they also put at Swatches in the question. And make sure that you're doing that. If you have something directed to me, I'm basically only going to be looking at the stuff that has at Swatches, because it'll flag it in orange and I can see that. But what do I think about it? It's kind of off of the other one as well. They're both completely good options, and they each do something different. They give you a different experience in the art industry. I enjoy freelancing, but I would also consider working in a studio at the right position. So, freelancing, you get to pick your own location. You work from home, wherever you want to live, and you can pick whatever your hours are. You can be a little more choosy about what projects you want to take and what projects you want to decline. But studios also give standard paycheck. Freelancers don't. Like I don't know that I'm going to have any projects coming to me. Well, I'd say next month. I do. I already have stuff planned out for next month. But say 2 or 3 months from now, I don't know what my projects are going to be. So if you don't want to have to handle that ambiguity of not knowing your financial baseline going forwards, or maybe you have a family and you can't really risk the freelance ups and downs, then a studio might be a great option. The other thing with the studio is it gives you the opportunity to actually work with other artists and other creatives and writers and art directors in a face-to-face sort of situation, and that's not something you get from freelance, or not very often. So there is something in that, and you can really start feeding off of other people's ideas and off of their creative energy, and you can just connect with those people in a way that you don't connect with a lot of other people, because they understand what you care about. They understand your field, and that's really cool. So, yep, good options both sides. We're going to change it up this time. We're going to go counterclockwise. So we're going to, backwards from alphabetical. Counter alphabetical? Is that something? I don't know. So Travis Earls will be the first one up, going the other direction. Okay, Travis, okay, as I've said before, I try to bring up points that not only address the particular image that we're looking at, but points that are just good talking points, and I'll try to do that throughout. So, like on this image, it is a good representation of how to get a concept that an art director might give you, and then actually expound on that a little bit without going off the rails. That they have this metal clasp shell that this seed is in, and then it opens up, and then the magic from the seed comes out. I didn't say anything about a magic shell or that's made of metal that opens up, but it's a cool idea, and it's a cool imagery, and it brings in a nice texture into the image once you get into doing the metal surfacing of it and the way that it reflects light and stuff. It would be a good counterpoint to a lot of the other things going on in the image. So I want to applaud that. That's cool. And the other thing here is you're definitely on the right track with, pick me some other color besides green, with the energy that you're trying to get here. It's like you're working with water, and that the stream is coming down, and you almost have this splash of water, the splash of plants and life and energy kind of coming off of it. But I would say to ramp it up even more. You say zetabetical? Is that right? If you do it backwards from alphabetical, it's zetabetical? I don't know. You might be right. I would have to check that. Let's go even more, though. Like, this is good. This is a good size, right? It's big enough that we can get the idea of the seed. But this is fairly small. We still have most of the image is not about the actual action going on in the image. Now, talking about a commissioned piece like this, that's going to be crucial. You want to make sure that this is all about this. This should be supporting, all right? So if you were to get, I'm going to just do it super rough, all right? So with this many entries, I think we have like 16 entries, 18 entries, that I can't spend a lot of time on each one. But like even if you did this, that's going to give you a lot more. And it's going to make that point even more powerful. And you're not losing enough of the background that you can't tell what's going on. Uh, what am I on this one? Nope. Just give me that one. I'll just clean it up a little bit there. That would be a lot closer. And I think you can pretty much just go right along this line, and it's going to get you right along the right direction. So I love the direction you're going with it. I know this is very early, and I assume that you plan to add more colors in. But make sure we're getting some variance in the colors down here. And this whole thing should be more, more colorful, more vibrant. And let's take a look at... I'll just do it this one, this tab. Okay. I did find some references. I have not posted these. I'll post these up on Facebook. But let's walk through these real quick, and then I can reference back to them as we're looking at the other ones. I just went out on ArtStation, did some searches. Now, this is cool. Like, there's motion and action going on here with the glowing inside of the branches. That's neat. This is a really good piece. Now, pay attention to this and see the amount of life and energy that they convey with all of the colors and with the shapes of the vines. You've got the glowing green, you've got the glowing oranges, and that's fine. Like, you can have glowing orange flowers and purple flowers that bring in all that other color. And then the vines themselves, guys, make sure you're getting as much use out of the vines and the grasses and the tree limbs or whatever you're doing in your particular image, because it has a beautiful flow. You can get so much energy out of those, and make sure you're making full use of that. Even back here, this is very beautiful. If you want to go more in that way, you can have some wonderful like natural light sources. So that's a cool image. Down here, look at this. How much sunlight, how hopeful, how vibrant, how colorful. This would be, besides the fact that these are like man-eating plants, if you ignore that, this is actually really close, conveying that same sort of thing. This is just a cool little way. Like, you don't have to get super fancy with the tree. He has a little a leaf brush and just did bunches of little leaves, different colors. And he didn't have to go in there and paint a lot of little individual leaves. This is an example of good lighting, right? You could have the seed like up here, and then stuff is coming down from the seed. And then you have the sunlight coming on there and lighting up that section, making it extra magical. And then the other more barren area can be around in the background. And you notice that there's not that much detail there because the haze really flattens it out. If you want to go more stylized, you have something like this, right? But this is also a great example of the life, right? I mean, you can feel the life and the energy coming off of that. Look at all these S-curves, and they're making big use of the S-curves. Everything has a beautiful natural curve to it. Those curves have energy to them, and straight lines have less energy. They're more rigid. So look to use the curves, C-curves, and S-curves in order to map the plants and the growth of everything. Okay, down here, this one is a good example of, you can get a very realistic impression of the image with very little hand-painted detail. There is some texture going on here. He just scribbled in a lot of shapes. You got some textured brushes, and all of it comes together to give a very bright, vibrant sort of green, variations of green, and not everything is just hand detailed. So you can get that. Make sure that you're not putting in too much time into your sketch phase. And I say that because there's several of you that really went and started getting really refined, just these little refined bits on your concepts. It's like that's too far. That's too far at this stage, because this should still be the phase where everything is malleable. Nothing is set yet. This is where you're still exploring, and you don't want to start putting in really refined stuff on it, and it's kind of a mental thing. Okay, if you start going in and putting in a lot of sharp details, then you are far less likely to change it later. You will, and you'll naturally think, well, I put so much time into that, I don't want to take it out, or it's already so defined, it that has to be set. No, it doesn't. Keep it loose. Keep it loose. Get the general feel. Get the general values. Get the general color. Get the general lighting. And then start specifying it and getting more detail and defining it as it goes along. Okay. Oh, this is just a step-by-step of how that artist, you can see the name up there, did this image. See, that's how they did the same thing too. Big blocks to start with. Then they started adding a couple of different places. Just one group at a time. And then more and more detail as he went down. Yep, exactly how I should do it. The beautiful piece here by Wenjun Lin. Just came across this on ArtStation. These are the sorts of colors I hope you guys start paying attention to for this particular challenge. This is where you can bring that vibrancy of nature and not just be stuck with one tone of green. Look at all these beautiful shades. You've got greens and oranges and yellows all the way over into pinks. You have blues, turquoises, but it works because it's in the right value. And then they also work it so that it's big transitions. You have cooler tones here, more pure greens here, and transitions into the warmer tones over there. And of course, cooler, bluer tones down here. So each area of the image has kind of a graduation towards one side of the spectrum. And then the values are kept good so that the colors can shift within that hue range as long as the value stays right. Okay, wonderful image there. A similar thing here too. If you want to get away from the worms and stuff, this is also really cool. This is a much bluer turquoise sort of scene, but this could also work for this particular challenge. Pay attention to the way that they light this in order to give it a lot of beauty and sort of a magical quality, and that is backlighting some of these branches. So on this side, on the near side, these branches have this cool, soft sort of north light on them. Then as the light comes through the leaves on the underside, you get the brighter green. That's the way the leaves work, right? So they're translucent and they kind of have a stained glass effect if you're seeing the light come through them. All right, so that's a look over those. And now we have a better idea of what we're talking about when we're approaching these. So remember, let's expand out the color on some of these. Make sure that there's plenty of light here. And this back part can be duller, it can be cooler, but let's not make it too dark, right? The entire scene needs to be hopeful. Excellent direction, though. Excellent direction. Number 2, Ricardo. It may feel more mysterious than hopeful. Still plan to use a strong fill light for the foreground of dead leaves and do not make completely night so there's more revealed. I'm also thinking for a more seed shape for the seed itself. Also rework the stones in a less sci-fi way. Make it more of an old druidic fashion. Yeah, I think those are good observations and good plans for going forwards. It is a bit sci-fi right now, and I think that would be a good call to adjust that. I'm not really getting a seed feeling from any of this. Like if you took this out and made some sort of seed shape there, maybe you have the seed like, opening, or maybe there's layers to the seed and the bits of the layers are falling off. That's fine. It could be that you have, let me zoom in there. It could be that there is this stone archway, and I think you can definitely do it that way, right? make it look old and kind of druidic. And essentially, this thing is channeling the magic. So you have like magic aura kind of coming off over here, strands of magic. And then it's infusing this thing. And then this thing is sort of sending out the magic to the ground. I'm kind of thinking that direction is one way that you could take it. But we're losing, again, all of this isn't really being used for anything. Basically, all that's happening is right here. And be careful of flattening the image out too much. You know, if we looked at this image from the top, you have the camera here, the field of view, and essentially it's this. Everything, you know, the archway is right there, the seat is right there, the vines are right here, and there's not much of this or this. There's not much depth to the image. And something you could consider to try to break that up a little bit is to have vines coming to us, right? Doing this sort of thing. That would bring us into the image. I'm not sure what's going on back there, right? Is that the sun, the moon? I don't know right now. Are you going for like a celestial scene back there? That could work. That could be cool. And go with that. The other thought here is if you want to break from the complete symmetry, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with complete symmetry, but I want to toss it out there just so you're aware of it. You could consider doing like a foreshortened ring, you know, going around like this. And then if you want to give that idea that it's really old, then the bottom of it, it's actually been kind of covered over by ground, and there's, you know, there's moss and stuff. And then if you want, you could even have like another ring, you know, coming up like something like this. So it's these interlocking stone ancient rings. Then they could have stuff growing off of them, you know. And then especially the magic is being channeled into these things. And now these have like vines and all kinds of stuff coming off of them because it has the magic. Just putting out some ideas. Let's make sure we get a bit more depth on that. Make sure that the seed is more understood than right now. It just looks like a stone tablet thing. Okay. Good stuff, good stuff. Don't save. Yeah. Mikawai. I like the idea here of going a bit broader. I'm not saying that the rest of you should do that, but I like that you're approaching it from that direction because most of you aren't, and it's kind of interesting. So this seed isn't just large. I mean, like this is big. I'm taking it that these are actual trees, in which case this thing is 30 feet tall or so, and that's a interesting idea. I'm kind of on board with that. But let's push it further, right? And make better use of the space. The big thing here is most of the image does not have anything to do with the actual action going on in the description of the scene. So yeah, that's cool. Right now it's really fuzzy. I feel like I'm going to assume that you just blocked it in really big blocks and just kind of that's the way you start your image. But let's make sure that we understand that there's magic coming down, and that's what's making this happen. Because right now it just looks like a floating thing over some trees, but not necessarily that this is making that happen. Okay, then let's see it going off. Like, let's see this more. So we have the big trees, and you've got some of these trees that are closer, right? I'm kind of thinking of like a time. You almost want to think of it like ripples in the water, right? So this part has been receiving more magic, a bit less magic, a bit less magic, a bit less magic as it's going up. So these could be like the most developed, and they're really big and they're going out. And then as it goes out, it gets a bit smaller, right? Bit smaller, and maybe the magic is still seeping out. Like you have like the magic strands or dust or whatever it is, then you can see it making stuff bloom as it goes out. Uh, this is also sort of a wasted back there, even if you make that change. So I would consider just pulling up on the whole thing. Now, if you were to do it a bit overall, a bit more like that, then have the seed. The seed could still be pretty big. I mean, it could still be something like this, or you could even place it, part way down into the trees, and you have the trees sort of growing up around it. A bit of it could be covered up, but it has, magic coming up and down and around, and so you have that sort of thing going on too. Make sure that you're changing up. You have different kinds of trees. You have different kinds of plants. And frankly, this image reminds me of animated movie My Friend Totoro. And he, doesn't he? He does something. He plays music of some kind, doesn't he? Then this giant forest starts growing. I'm sure that you can just YouTube and find the clip, Totoro magic forest growth. I don't know, something on that line. But look at that. Look at how they make those trees look like they're growing, and how they spawn off other trees and stuff. Yeah, I like that. Go with it. Go with it. Okay. Okay, quick question. Jonathan asked, how many artworks would you recommend for an illustration portfolio, especially having companies like Wizards in mind? Well, if you were to send your portfolio to a company, or if you had a chance to meet with one of the art directors and have him review your stuff, then I'd say 10 to 12. Any less than that, and it feels like maybe you don't have enough work to fill out a portfolio. You don't have enough high quality work to fill a portfolio. But a lot more than that, and it feels like it just starts becoming redundant. And it's going to take a lot of time just to look through them. And having done some of my own reading and talking to people, yeah, 10 to 12 is sort of the industry accepted good medium range. And Ben asked, to improve your ability, did you consciously practice the teachings from instructionals materials, books, tutors, etc., or did you improve more through simple drawing and painting? Lots of developing an instinct or intuition about what works and looks good. The question there is, yeah, I did a lot of conscious practicing. Yeah, I did. I wanted to get better at drawing and painting people, so I did 1,000 portraits. And yeah, I just pick up a magazine, catalog, and just do a portrait, and then do another portrait, and then do another portrait, and do another portrait. Yeah, so that was a lot of it. I have gone through more art books than I can even remember, reading them, doing the exercises that they mention in them. Taking workshops, taking classes from local teachers. So yeah, whole thing there is, you don't have enough time in your life to learn everything on your own, to make all of the trial and errors you need in order to get to where you want to be. Or you do, it's going to just take you a lot longer than you want. So learn from what other people have already learned. Learn from what the artists before you have already figured out. And they recommend a good exercise. Do that exercise. Like Keys to Drawing, old traditional drawing book. And it has a good set of exercises in it. Things like blind contour, practicing on negative space, that sort of thing. Those are good exercises. Can you show us some of your earlier works? Yes, that's the next incentive on my Patreon. Is once we reach that next incentive goal, then I will do a video where we look at some of my sketches. Yeah. Were there any specific breakthroughs or ideas that you felt boosted your work to the next level? Yes, but it's usually little stuff. It's little stuff, like 1,000 little things. Some of the bigger ones would be learning 3D. When I was a boy, learning how to draw 3D, learning how to make something feel like it had dimension to it, had depth to it. And that previously to that, I thought of everything, just in terms of lines. You just draw. This is how you draw, a cat. You make a circle, then you make eyes, then you make a triangle, and that's how you can draw a cat face. Yeah, but that's a cat face from only this view and a very stylized version. But I had no idea how you draw a cat face from an angle, from a 3/4 view. That's when you start having to understand getting depth. That's a big thing on that. But I'm actually talking about some of the best tips I've ever got, and some breakthroughs and ideas that help me on drawing faces. I just recorded that video, so I'm going to edit that, and that will be coming out. The best art advice I've ever received on drawing and painting faces. So, yeah, make sure you're keeping your eye on the channel. That'll be coming out next couple of days. I'm not sure how long it'll take me to edit it. But, okay, let's get back to it then. Michaela Dawn. All right, some good things going on here, and also some things that we don't want to forget about. Where did I put my pen? Down there. Okay, this is a pretty straightforward seed shape, and you do have it hovering there. You went with a very low angle, and that's fine. That gives a good upper view to it. But look at this. There's so much little detail going on this, and all the individual grass blades and stuff. Let's keep it looser. Let's keep it looser until we know what we're wanting. Let's think about the overall value scheme and color scheme. And we're not seeing any of the barren ground, or not much at this stage, right? And we're not getting so much of an idea that this is what's doing it. Right now, there's just kind of an orange light coming off of it, but it's not really touching anything. You don't see anything changing from it. And that's why I'm just kind of do this up here. Try to think how you can build the scene around the seed so that it looks like the seed is the instigator. So you could have, I'm going to just divide this up. Okay, so we have this. So you have the seed, each one of these here. Okay. Then, if you did that sort of thing, you could have stuff growing up around it. That looks like maybe the seed has something to do with it. And then the other thing is you can use color to key it off. So if this is, say, you have a violet seed, then what you could do is have violet light coming out of the ground where the vines and the trees are coming out of the ground. So what you're doing is you're making a visual connection between those and saying, this is responsible for this. And then, of course, they can turn to green as they go up, but you're using the color of the seed to connect with the magic of where the plant is growing from. That would be an option. Another option is kind of what we looked at earlier, that it's sort of channeling magic down, or it has magic motes of light coming down. And then from here, it's the splash idea. Plants. Maybe this one goes the opposite direction, right? And then it grows up like this. And you have some of this stuff more in the foreground. All of it's growing up. And you can tell that this is responsible. The seed is responsible for all this incredible growth going around it. You could have it actually coming out, right? You could have like a little vine coming out of here. And then as it goes out, it becomes bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden it starts just being this massive thing, and then it has stuff growing off of that. And you can see that this is the catalyst. Everything is coming from this seed. All right? I'm just trying to think of a way in order to connect the two. You want you want the energy coming out of this. Right now, this is it's more passive than that, right? It's just like, okay, it's a forest scene, and there's a floating seed, and some light coming from it. But how can we connect them? With these trees, think about interesting shapes. Like if you have the tree doing this, and it's going around the seed. And you have another tree going around the other side, like that. And then you have maybe that light, right? And then it has like veins of that light coming up the tree. And you got light coming out of the tree with the same magic glow. And then down here are lots of color, lots of flowers. And make sure that you have more around this thing than you do out there, right? And we want it to get less and less, and gets more rocky and gets more barren as it goes out. Let's see, what else? Michaela says, thanks for reviewing my sketch. I haven't tackled environments much before, so any and all feedback is greatly appreciated. You're welcome. You got a good start going on. I particularly do like the low angle because it gives you this sort of, that worm eye view and the fishbowl, and gives you a lot of the scene, and it makes the seed feel bigger and more important because you're so low to it. I would keep with that camera angle and just implement some of the ideas and bring that energy into it. Yeah. Next up, Matt. Okay, Matt, before I forget, I used this little crop of your image right here in the thumbnail of this video. And if that's okay with you, then you don't need to say anything. But if it's not, if you want me to replace it with something else, let me know and I'll definitely take that down and replace it. But otherwise, yeah. Okay, Matt, really good start with this, but let's make sure that it's saying the right thing. Okay, now, and this is something I generally say this, but maybe some of you guys watching this video are new, and let me make sure that this is clear. This challenge is completely optional. It is completely up to you, right, to enter it. There is no obligation here. That's what I'm saying. There's no obligation here. So if this is the direction of the scene that you want to take, and if you get an idea, you start working on this challenge, and you get a idea for a scene that doesn't follow my outline, and you want to do that, then do it. All right? The whole idea of the challenge is just something to help, motivate you, to inspire you, just to get you to draw. So I feel like this piece is getting to go slightly of a different direction than what the challenge is about. And with the challenge, it is about the action. What you're trying to convey with this challenge is this seed has this effect. And right, this doesn't feel like anything is happening. Obviously, there's water falling, right? But this is a passive scene. I feel like this is something that's just been there like that for quite a while. And I want to answer it in both directions. I think that, now that I'm thinking about it, I think that's the best way to take it. Let's answer it both directions. First, let's answer it by the challenge, in which case the focus is being split between this, because it's the most vibrant, most colorful thing in the scene, and this, it's a human being. Now, human beings, even if they're small and they're dark and they're on the side of the image, they pack a much higher focal priority than almost anything else that you can put in a scene. We will make this, we will attribute more importance to a character than we do other things. So if you put one in the scene, it almost immediately becomes about the character. And I know that this is not a specific character, but as soon as I see this, it is about this character's view and experience of this scene. And it's not about the tree, it's not about the seed, it's not about the magic, it's about their perception of that thing. So for the challenge, I'm going to say you got to take her out. Yeah, just for the reasons that I said. And we want to make sure that it is all about this guy right here. No, wrong layer. So let's put him front and center, right? I don't know what you'll do with the side. I'm just trying to get that out so it makes sense the way that I move the image over there. Also, if you looked at the last chapter I did on composition that was released for the patrons, then you know that centering something automatically gives it importance. And it makes it seem more stable. It makes it seem more important. So I think you will be better off here if you want to follow the challenge outline to put it centered. And then I got to say, I love the light. Let's not change much on the light. That's cool. I like this cavern. I like the idea that there is a bit of cavern back there, but there's just that so much haze going on, you can't see it much. And the other thing is, and you can do it this way, it's going to be trickier though. I cover it in my chapter on colors, which is available in the store if you want to pick it up. But take a look at these over here, right? There's a reason that they're all around green. Green, 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 green. And you can get over to the yellows. You can get over to some of the warms. But it's a green base. Why? Because green naturally conveys nature. It conveys life and it conveys growth. So you might want to think about trying to add more of that, or you have perhaps a pink green dynamic, and that can work, right? We see like an orange green dynamic here, and that works. Up here, they went more for the blue green side of it, along with a red violet, and that works. It can work. It's kind of what you see up here too, right? The way that these colors work together. I think that if you go that way, it's just going to have the feeling of life and energy about it more than this. And then what else about this scene is that it feels, again, very static, like it's something that has just been growing there and nothing's really moving or happening. So if we can use more of the S-curves, so instead of this look like it's just kind of hanging there, let's have them like they're reaching out. And that's what vines can look like, right? You can have these vines look like they're kind of alive, almost like they're snakes, right? And they're reaching out to grab stuff. Down here, this is a great place. I love the idea that there's like this magic water, this life water coming out of the seed. And this is where you want all the beautiful plants. Boom, down here, and everything that water touches is just being hit right up with all that. So you have some of it in the shadow, right? And you can maybe switch over to the cooler side. So the stuff in the shadow is going to be more turquoisey, and the stuff being lit by the light is going to be a lot more yellow. Might even switch over to a bit more of the orange side because it's pretty warm. And you can have it going down here. You can have some of your warm flowers, that sort of thing down here. All around that. And then you have, maybe this is like orange here. Right? That's kind of the color of the seed. It has this golden sort of color. But as it goes off, right, it turns into the maybe towards the green side. Or if you don't want to go straight green, you want to keep with the cooler tones, something more like that, right? I have to go a little darker for it to show up there. You could go that direction with it. So see how you can Matt says, I'd love to make it kind of an oasis there. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm thinking is you've got this beautiful budding oasis. Think about that. All of this stuff is coming to life within 30 seconds. This isn't something that's been gradually happening over, 10 years. This is 30 seconds of magic. You just unleashed, life in this place, and boom, it's just energy is just shooting out of this thing. Color is budding. Plants are coming out. You've got plants, immediately coming off of all the areas closest to this thing. Then, less and less it goes as it goes back. Boom, boom, there. Maybe you got some different colors back up underneath some of these leaves. I like the bonsai tree sort of feel to it. And that's something else that you could do. You could have like more of that style of tree and stuff going on. So you got all of this is just being filled up with life. Yeah, I think the vines is one of the biggest ways that you're going to get more energy out of it, because right now it's passive. Unless what you want to do is have like those are old vines, then you have most of the life coming from down here, coming from the water. Maybe the water is the new thing, and so you've got vines coming off from down there, right? And so it's all just kind of exploding off of this part, and then maybe along those sides. Yeah, I love those aspects of the image, and I think you can get that and just push it much further. With this guy, consider like this looks like an old bonsai, and I think that's kind of neat, but it also doesn't feel like it's anything that's just growing. Consider trying to find a different shape that's got a bit more energy to it, or it's maybe a collection of them coming up and joining together, so they have a couple of different shapes of leaves, or maybe there's even some smaller ones. I mean, you think I'm just trying to expand out some of the options here. Like everybody could think about really bright colored mushrooms, bright flowers coming off of it. Down here we can think about things like inner lighting this thing. Like if we had I like the idea of the kind of the acorn scales on it. Now you have like light kind of emanating from inside of this thing, from between the scales. And then that way that we have plenty of color. And that's something that a lot of these are missing, is the real punch of color that's going to give it a feeling of life. The whole thing comes a bit glowy down there on the bottom, right? And these are all suggestions. Feel free to take these, adapt them. Don't necessarily just, he says to light it like this. No, I'm not here to give you answers and just, this is, the only way that you can do it. No, this is a way to do it. I'm trying to provoke some ideas. And if you do that, I'm just brainstorming here. Like, if it was mine, these are things that I would consider. I mean, you could have this beautiful light, like, let's do a linear dodge. Like a beautiful, like, light coming down from it as well. And this is a place, this is kind of cool. If you, like light, water that's being lit by the glowing light from the seed itself. Right, so some of that water is completely white from the top, where it's being lit by that overhead light, which is kind of the celestial light. And we have the beautiful spray of water down here where it's splashing up. And then the pink of everything in the shadow being lit by those seed glowing. Yeah, all kinds of stuff there you could do. All right, let's go ahead and close that down and move on. Before I forget mentioning it, remember there is 2 weeks for the next final. Normally there's 1 week, for this one, and then 1 week till the final. But we're not having a live stream next week. I will be on a plane, so I will not be having a live stream. And then we should have one the week following that. For some reason there isn't, that I'll put a statement out on the group and let everybody know. Okay, Marco. Okay, Marco. You too. I like the take of the low here, and obviously we're not dealing with colors yet on yours, but we won't touch on that. This is good. This magic energy that you have going around it, even as rough as you've put it in, has an excellent sort of energy, and also like the kind of the non-standard seed. I'm not sure what kind of seed this is. Almost feels like a flower that would open up. But yeah, that's good. I like it coming up here. What's not really being sold is the whole idea of what's going on, right? It is a action scene. It is an action card. And yeah, this is cool, but there's no barren terrain out here. And we don't have really a connection between the trees and this thing. So this gives a great up angle to it, but I'm going to consider at least having like the big ones here, and then these we need to take out, and then we need saplings coming up as it goes further away from it. Right, so big trees near it, and then they're getting smaller trees, as we get away from it. And then maybe we see some like rocky outcroppings or something over there. Or it could be, this could also work. If you want to keep the trees in there, then an option would be to have these basically as you have them, but then these are dead trees. So essentially, instead of it spawning trees, it's just bringing the dead trees back to life. So these don't have any leaves, right? These are just old dead limbs. And then, as the magic gets over to them, then they start spawning more life. And then all of a sudden, limbs and leaves start budding out. Yay! And then this one maybe just has a couple little buds coming on him. But these are full blown. Maybe the ones in here actually have some sort of flowers on them, so they have even more color on those guys. And there's a progression of like biggest, most leaves with the most colorful flowering leaves, to just regular leaves, to dead tree with just little, budding leaves coming off of it. That would help more. Same thing with the ground down here. You could have beautiful tall grasses, flowers, colorful mushrooms, whatever you want. Then as it gets over here, it could be more like the dead leaves and dead grasses, kind of just killed over gray and brown. Yeah. William makes a comment here saying, this is more storytelling than anything else. Absolutely, William, you're right on the money with that. It is about the narrative. And the narrative aspect, I'm actually going to be covering it in a later chapter of the Understanding Mood book. The narrative is about conveying an element of time, right? And a lot of the images that we do don't. So it does take practice, it does take effort, and is a different way to think about the scene. It actually helps if you've studied animation and comic books, because they have to convey the time in a still image, where a lot of our illustrations don't. It's just one frozen moment, like a character image, right? If you have a character standing there, all you need to do is convey the character. You don't need to convey them actually doing much. So what you're trying to do is set a progression of time, little to small, um, brown to green, um, yeah, like little curves to big curves. Yeah, that sort of approach. How can you convey the time difference between this spot in the image and that spot in the image? Yeah, cool stuff. Okay, let's close that down. Thanks, Marco. Yeah, I'm getting a bad output. A couple of you guys are mentioning that you are having difficulties with the stream. I'll make that change. See if it. Yeah, I'm getting pretty large lag spikes on my side. It's not you. You might need a refresh. It might help. I'm not sure, but I know that I'm getting red down here, which means I'm getting a lot of dropped frames. Unfortunately, that's what we have out here in Kauai. Yay! But as I said, I'm actually moving back to the mainland next week, and the new location should have steadier internet. So hopefully that'll fix this up. Okay. Okay, let's take a look at the question. Take a sip of water here. Olga asked, "Have you studied art history? Did modernism and or postmodernism ideals influence the way you see and make art?" Olga, I really didn't study art history that much. I did not go to public school. I was homeschooled, so I didn't take art history. I did not go to college, so I did not take art history. And it's not something that so intrigued me that I took my free time to study it. I do know some just being an artist and reading through art books and stuff. The biggest influence that it has over me, which isn't all that much, is just knowing that the art world is very broad and that there's pretty much room for anything that you find interesting. And some modern art, I don't care for a lot of modern art. I think it's a cover for people who don't want to actually learn the trade skill of art. But some modern art is good because they approach it as a practice of minimalism. And what I mean by that is they're trying to make a interesting piece or a piece that emotionally resonates with somebody without having a recognizable subject, without having shading, without having a definitive focal point. So they're working with things like colors and edges and composition in order to make an engaging piece. And that can be very difficult. And so for that, I kind of take away from it. And the other thing is, don't forget to just be creative. Don't feel bad for going off on a tangent and trying something different. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing. You know, I do the sort of work that I do because I like that particular kind of work. But don't feel like you have to do that kind of work because that's what's popular. Now, if you want to get the same jobs, then yeah, you probably need to do the same kind of work because that's just what the industry is looking for. But that doesn't mean that you can't do something very different and just support yourself, you know, by your own artwork. So that's the biggest takeaway that I have from it. Yeah. Okay, Marcel. What do we got here, Marcel? Yeah, you have a collection of images. This looks like a scene from Mobius. If I'm not mistaken, it looks like a Mobius image. So you're thinking about a similar composition there. Okay. Another one here is we need to cut the characters. It cannot be... there cannot be any problem. What am I trying to say? It cannot be misunderstood what this piece is about. And people will do that. Having people in an image will automatically make it about their people. And we will empathize with them and we will see the scene through their eyes. And we don't. We want to see the image with our eyes, and we don't want it to be about their experience of it. We want it to be about it. So, that's okay, but let's X that. Okay, a couple of different ideas here. These are excellent little studies. Marcel, this is a good way to approach it. Same sort of way that I would. I do a bunch of little thumbnails. Let's try this, let's try that, let's try that. Cool stuff. Okay, and they're all pretty understood. I'm guessing this is like a flower. This one I think is one of the least effective for what we need. That's way more effective. You've got some sort of little hollow area or chasm, and you got the seed there. I'm not sure what that is, but the light emanating around it. You got some plants growing, but again, double down on the plants if you go with that one. Something that I saw going on with this, and you have that same sort of idea on several of these, so I want to bring it up, is careful with this. All right, now I've talked about using vines a lot, and this is good energy from the vine. It's almost like an octopus tendril, that sort of thing, or squid. Is which way is it going and where is it coming from? Because this looks like the ground is reaching up to grab the seed rather than the seed is reaching out with tendrils or vines, right? That's a problem. We want to make it look like the vines are coming from the seed and going to the ground. So we can have it wrapping around, but they're going that way, right? Otherwise it feels like the ground is trying to grasp it. Little difference there. You might want to think about how to change those up. And of course, this sort of thing, you can do it that way. Maybe, I'm almost thinking if you want to do it that way, instead of it wrapping all the way around, you could have it coming up and it kind of weaves itself into a sort of basket, right? And there's these vines forming a base for this thing. And then from that base, we have flowers, right? And there's flowers all along here coming off of it. And off of the flowers, what do we have? We have petals. Petals are flying off from the flowers. More little energy, little motes of color coming off of it. What do we have down here? We have grass. We have grass springing off of it. Woo! And we're all using this, right? Look at these shapes that I'm using in the composition. Energy. That's a dynamic energy coming off of it. What we don't want to do is this. That's not energetic. That's completely static. Right? That's nothing. That's nothing. We want to come out. So in your compositions, we're looking for a couple of things. We're looking for this. That's a good energy. Yeah, flow, right? That. Another one would be look for ways to use a spiral. Maybe you have vines coming off of that way, but then it goes, this sort of idea that this vine comes out and it goes around that thing and it's kind of coming around and then it goes in there, and it goes into the ground, right? And where it goes into ground, there's all these plants coming out and flowers coming out. And then it pops out of the ground, right here. It's going in and out of the ground, and it goes around, and then it goes into these rocks, more flowers. And then this rock forms that sort of shape, following up that. And then you have, the vine coming up here. And then you already kind of have that shadow right there, right? And so this whole thing starts having a spiral flow to it. And the good thing about spirals is that they have a sense of growth and energy to the scene like that. Other things that you can do is like follow the number 9. That would work. Well, I'm not saying for that scene. I'm just saying the number 9 has a good flow to it. 6 as well. All these curvy sort of shapes, the letters and the numbers, can work well for that. Okay. So I think this one could definitely work. That's kind of an odd angle, and for that reason, I'm interested in it. I do like the rocky terrain on this one. If you can treat it the right way, you don't necessarily have to do what I did with the spiral. Like if you just had, this is all kind of gray, brownish, dull, essentially. And then you have this beautiful greens and yellows and violets and colorful stuff. And you just have greens and plants streaming down from around this thing. Just everything close to it. Proximity. Proximity is where everything's growing from. I think that could work too. So it's a little less about the energy of the plants and more about the color. Because this sits really well with that dark background behind it. And so you just have like a gray to vibrancy all the way around this image. And then this points you back up to that, and that's got to have a lot of good color on it. This one, being light like that, I'm almost thinking of like a pearl. Like it has a mother of pearl shimmer to it. And it's white, and it has that sort of layers of color of like almost like oil, right? It has, you can get that color shift to it, and that can be really pretty. I don't know. Some of these other ones, they're good compositions. I don't think that they're saying the right thing though. So hopefully that gives you some direction, and as for you other guys as well. Okay, next up, we're looking at Leonardo. This is good. Let me pick something a bit lighter here. Go with like a yellow. Yeah. Okay, I like this opening up. Having the seed in here, some sort of covering that was around it. Magic emanating from that. Good pop of color there. But we need to push it further. And we also just need to fill the frame with it more. So for this one, same sort of thing I've done with the other ones. Let's fill the frame with the subject. Just, yeah, somewhere in that region. And again, let's give the narrative. Let's give the passing of time here. So, I don't know why that's... Now, this could be cool. This could be cool. I don't know why there's a hole here. But if essentially this thing has risen out of the ground and the magic is coming from it, that could be neat. But a cooler way to do it could be to, you have your hole there. I guess somebody's starting a lawnmower outside. And then you have the blocks of stone, a rock, and the rubble. It's actually suspended by the magic. And so you have this glow coming out, and you just get the idea that this whole thing just popped out of the ground. You've got all that, and you got some cracks. There's so much life magic coming out of this thing that there's cracks going through the ground. And you got light shining up out of the cracks, shining up out of this thing, shining up out of this thing. Now this also is a great compositional tool, and that is the radiating lines like a spoke, right? And that's how you can use the cracks in order to emphasize the composition. So, you know, you do something like this, and then we want to make better use of these, right? So these aren't just that. We're not going towards this thing. We're going away from it. This thing is spawning them. So, boom, they're reaching out. They're trying to expand. They're trying to fill the scene with life. And then there's some big ones, right? The ones up here are big. And you got little ones spawning out of the ground down here. And then this probably has grasses and stuff starting to grow out, you know, on this stuff. Make sure that we're not going to just leave all that up there like really segmented, because right now it is. It's basically background, midground, foreground. The foreground element is pretty cool actually, but you know, once we move the scene, see, this is pretty nice, but it would need to be adjusted, you know, if we zoomed in a bit more. And this is also a good place where we can have some close-up flowers, right? Really pop the color in there. I mean, look at some of these, right? How much color we can get off of this stuff. Like this sort of thing, right? And it can be in shadow, right? If we don't want it to pop out too much, we can still put it in shadow like you have it. But back here, there needs to be something, and this is sort of dull, right? Just, you know, compositionally. So let's find something a bit more interesting than that, and at least have some like magic coming up off of it, some motes of light, something to sort of make use of that area. No. Jonathan, what do we have this time? Okay, this one. This is probably the closest yet to what you know, what a company, what an art director would look for from a commission like what we have here. This, if I didn't know anything about this project and I saw this image, I would be really close to the idea that was going on. I'd be thinking, whatever is going on with that magic golden light thing, that is sprouting life and building an oasis. And you're doing good work here. You're right along the right track. It feels like it has energy. It's getting a good amount of color. I think we can push it further. And it's getting the whole idea across. It is a bit... Maybe it's just a little dark. My monitor might be turned down a little bit. Give me something like, yeah, just that. Okay. What we are doing is losing the seed. So I think that's something important. Like, I guess these are like golden vines, but we still need an idea of the central seed. So I'd suggest just taking out some of the vines. Right? You can have some crisscrossing it, but not so much that we can't get a view of the seed itself. And, you know, if it's all light in there, you could probably have it to be some, you know, silhouetted, but it can be silhouetted and not be black. Right? Something on that line. And you can have, you know, something going over it a little bit, but you don't want to totally obscure it. And that way, you know, when you see the title of Seed of Renewal, you'd be like, oh, it's that particular thing. Because otherwise you're going, that's a seed? I don't know, that's odd. Okay, what else? The trees. We have 4 trees right now, and usually you don't want to go with even numbers like that. So a workaround could be to toss this tree or this tree into the background onto the other side. So essentially, you know, you see the trunk coming out of it back there. And then this side is open. Yeah. And we can punch the light up here a bit more. So, you know, on this stuff being directly lit can be a lot brighter. I mean, look at these over here, right? The ones that we've already looked at. All that beautiful tone, very bright, very luminous. You know, this sort of thing. Yeah, let's play around a bit more of those colors. And we can also put in our... Give me my brush. Color dynamics. I'm trying to find, let's see, something that could pass for... Okay, there we go. A little less though. Little scattering. Spacing. Thank you. Don't feel like that has much. I was trying to get some. Oh, color dynamics. There we go. I was just curious. I'm sort of messing around here to see if I can get this to give me a lot more hue change. Yeah, so like that. If you put the hue change up, then what you can do is just sort of block in your scene and have a bunch of color. Maybe sample one of those colors and you go off from there. And as it gets further away, you start shifting into different colors. Right? And then that's a way that you can block in a bunch of color. And then as you come back, you can start sampling from those colors. You can get the cooler colors here. You can get back to some of your warmer colors, some of your greens, you know, in here. And then when you come in to actually start painting, no, you can pick out what you like, and you're like, oh, I like that color, so I'm going to use that to draw whatever it is. You know. Okay. That's good. I think you're on the right roll here. Let's punch up the color, punch up the value of how bright this light is. Backlight the tree so that this stuff is all brighter. Remember the ones that we looked at? Where is the backlit tree? You know, this sort of thing? That's what we want. So we can have warmer on the underside here. And then we have the cooler light from ambient light. So you have like cool light up here. I'm just treating it not as individual leaves, kind of as a block, which isn't a bad idea. And see, we can start throwing in a bunch of extra color into this scene. All that could be lightened up as well. It's like adding in color to things like the trunk. Looks like you're already using a bit of like violet tones. I mean, you can throw some violet tones in there. Basically, you just want to watch the value, make sure the value's sticking in a good place. So, yeah, keep going with that. Let's just punch it up, make it brighter, make it happier, make it more hopeful. And I like the Baron is pretty good, right? You might think about almost like this was a big cracked desert ground. You know, it has like the ground is just cracked with these, you know, the ground dries out and it cracks up. And that's a really easy go-to way of kind of indicating something that's completely parched and sort of lifeless. The cracked ground. Then out here, of course, you have the grass sort of breaking up through all the cracks. Yep. Great direction, Jonathan. Looking forward to see what the final looks like. Ricardo would ask, what's the best way to improve values? And what was your first professional commission as an illustrator? How much time ago, possibly showing this up? Best way to improve values. One of the best ways to improve values is to do value practicing. I would say a go-to value study is doing cast drawings, where you get like the plaster drawing. You get generally it's a plaster head, you know, molded off of a plaster mold, and that's completely, you know, white to begin with because it's plaster, and you copy it as perfectly as you can possibly copy it. It's very little artistic license, and what you're trying to do is just be very, very precise about every little value change. And that is something that art schools have been doing for hundreds of years. And it's one of the best practices for values. Also, get things like cast drawings. Those are good because they have good value ranges. And they're generally black and white to start with. And do two-tone studies of it. So do one where it's things are either black or white. And then do another version where it's black, white, and gray. And learn how to group values together and still keep all the information that you need. So those are good examples too. Also doing value studies from movies. I mean, that was one of the exercises for the last Patreon group, was get movie scenes, movie stills. And this whole website, it's like movie, I think it's screen caps or moviecraps.com, and you could just pull up, you know, 1,000 different movies and look at the screen captures of it and do little pencil sketches from them and break them into 3 to 5 values. Figure out how they balance the scene with those values and why it works, it doesn't work, and then, you know, do another one. And you don't, they're completely detailless when you do those, but it helps you understand how to use values in order to create dynamic and interesting shapes and balance a scene with them. Okay, James. James is up. Okay, going with a lot of good color here. I think that's one of the strong points that you have. However, it's a little split on the focal. I assume this is your seed, and you might want to revise this because, I don't know, it's a weird seed shape. Let's find something a bit more elegant, symmetrical, because right now it's a bit globby. So the attention is basically being split between these two. And that's not good. We need it to be about this guy. And, that's it. It needs to be very differently about one particular thing. Now, you can put it off center. You can have it, over here. This also, this kind of green, when you do that, it almost comes across as poison. And that applies to not just this image, but everybody. Is just a visual thing that people have used in animation and images for a long time. And it's kind of embedded that when you see green smoke kind of swirling around something, it can very easily give the impression of poison, which is what we don't really want. So either it needs to have the distinct shape, so it's like a magic vine that's reaching out, that's magical, or it probably needs to shift to a different color. So you can have him over there and have stuff, you can have the magic reaching out and growing things, but let's make sure that probably none of them need to be individually quite as big as he is. Otherwise, it's going to compete with it for this particular arrangement. So like all of that basically needs to be green, and then the green is sort of flooding. Almost think of it like water, right? The green is splashing up here, splashing off of that. We got stuff coming off of this one. It's starting to splash over this too. We don't necessarily need that right there. We've got green coming up on that guy, kind of coming around here. It's splashing up over this side. I think that could work. That would carry a bit more of the action instead of just this seed is producing basically one plant, and there's a couple little menial ones in the back. Is there some way that we can do it without the smoke? Another way is if you did like a series of kind of glowing lights that went down, or if it was that kind of yellow golden color, that could work too, something like that. The background is okay. Background's okay. I kind of like the idea of interesting rock shapes. That, start working in things like that. I almost want to think of it like a coral pattern. You'd have from like a coral plant under the ocean. And that pit mark look. And that's a cool pattern because it goes against the plants, and there's a good contrast between the two of those. The same thing over here. If you get that sort of pitted pattern and did that over here as well, and then you just have a consistency between those. Another good call is the violet. I think this is good. I think you could really go with a orange, violet, kind of yellow, green range, and that would be successful. So, good start. Let's just make sure that we're honing it the right direction and that the focus is not being split along the wrong things. Okay, I think you say this as Giles, Gilles, Giles. Okay, Giles, this is almost so rough that I can't even say much because I'm not sure what I'm looking at. I don't know what the depth is here, and I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm just really not sure what I'm looking at. Like, obviously, this is the seed, because that's the green thing that's kind of in the middle. I guess this is like a tree. The trees all have basically hands. And that's a little odd. I find that a little odd that they all have like hands. Can we find a better way to do this? And just in the future, if you can put more into your image than this, then I'm going to be able to tell you a lot more. I'm going to be able to help you a lot more. Also, if you start working with clients, they will need a lot more than this before they say yes, no, or maybe. Actually, they'll probably say no because they don't. They need to know what they're looking at. There can't be a lot of ambiguity. So I'm gonna guess you've. It feels like these are trees and they're reaching towards this seed thing, and we pretty much want the opposite. We want the opposite, that the seed is spawning trees that are going out from it. I like that the color of the seed goes counter to a lot of the rest of the scene. So this could probably drop off darker, 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 a bit lighter here. You have the light coming down from it. That's good. But unfortunately, that's about as much as I can get you because it's just really fuzzy. It's really rough right now. Christoph Ott. Okay, what are we got here, Christoph? Okay. Okay, that's bothering me. Move back over a little panel. Okay. Good start. Let's push it further. This is also another time where it's probably too detail-y here. You've already gone into doing a lot of little stuff here, veining and all that, and you've got very precise stuff going on in all of this, and this still needs to be in a sketch phase. I just feel like you're probably letting the cement dry at this point, and that's actually a good analogy. Let's say you're working with cement. You got wet cement, you can adjust it all you want, but soon as it dries, it's over. The only way you're going to change it is if you go in there and bust it up and haul it out and do it again. And just emotionally, the more detailed and the more time that we put into something, the less likely we will let ourselves be open to changing it. So I have a whole video on that called Bite the Bullet. Sometimes we need to bite the bullet and just redo things. And I talk about when to do that and why, etc. So here, first thing is the glass effect of this is cool, but it doesn't look like a seed. It looks like an obelisk of some kind. So let's make sure it's actually floating, which means let's get the bottom of it up here where it's obviously not touching anything on the ground. Is magic. That's why it's floating. And right there, if you got that small, you couldn't tell that that's not touching the ground. It's just really busy down there. So let's make sure it's clear that it's floating. And can we get a bit more of a seed look to it? Maybe it has some faint seed, patterns on it. Maybe it has like an acorn, top. It has like little scale things and a little thing coming off the top of it. Can it be opening up? Can it be opening up that way? I mean, I don't really care. We just need to convey a seed and not just a magical piece of glass. And it can be a magical seed made of, something that looks like glass, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be a real seed, but more seed-like. Okay, and with this is a good start. This has good energy. Vines, wrapping vines, reaching vines. The vines running along the ground are excellent. I like this more. We'll see if we can just expand this. Now, when we let that green actually break up that background, it becomes more interesting because it breaks the silhouette. You see down here, this all exists just within that ground plane. What we're trying to do is get it up here so that it breaks that horizon line. Then let's see, what else can we do? We can get this. And we don't want to compete the background too much against the foreground. So can we get that? Let's set that to, set it to normal, and then maybe 70%. That's not what I want. I want to adjust the sky so that the sky is not so bright, and then the greens and the yellows show up more. So we'll use something duller for the sky. Actually, I don't know. Oh, this one. I think we need more overlapping there. So can we have one of those maybe going behind that guy? And then I can disappear into some mist or something. And we would have some mist down there. So this is what I'm talking about. You can keep things looser, still work in color if you want to, and try to establish the big stuff going on. Now we can have, light from this that actually looks like it's showing up more. You can have the orange light. Let's set that to light. Linear dodge. And then the green, we can let it start going off into the shadows a bit. It can go a bit cooler as it goes out there. And we want to break up some of that shape in the background. And maybe we just start getting a bit of green back in there, a couple of spots. And back here we could have things like maybe dead trees. Look like kind of a dead forest, rocky, cavernous sort of area. And then start getting a little green on some of those nearer ones. Now, you can take a look at that and see the difference there. We get a lot more sense of light and color if we drop that sky down so that the light source is primarily from this sky, and expanding it out so that the whole scene is taken up with more of the subject matter. Okay, Christoph, good start. I think you really do have a solid start on that. Make sure that you're not trying to jump to detailing and finessing too quickly. Let's keep it in this sketchy phase until you can work on it this sort of direction with, how to block things in, how to play with colors. until you really have a solid direction, and then we can start tightening it up. Brianna is next. Okay. All right, Brianna. Good stuff. Good stuff with this. Okay, so you are having a seed here. Now, I don't know what the textures are that you were thinking for this, but I don't know if this is like a stone or wood or what. But putting the spiral pattern on this and then mirroring it on the ground is cool. Okay, I feel like this is a bit overdone though. If you're going to go with a very obvious spiral of magic light, then we could probably take out the spoke wheels also. I mean, the spoke wheels, because we already have the spiral. Now, we do need to touch on perspective a little bit here. That this, right, we are seeing this spiral on the ground at a certain perspective, or, you know, a certain distance above it. Now, following it, our eye level would be somewhere up here. Because we're getting a pretty good look down on this. So it's like this, that, you know, a circle back there is going to be really slim. And then a bit more, a bit more, a bit more, a bit more. And you're somewhere down here in this region, but then you've established that the horizon line is right there. Well, that doesn't work. The horizon line either needs to be put way up higher, or this spiral needs to be really compressed to more like that squishiness, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's up to you which one. One's not wrong, right, and the other one wrong. I kind of like this angle because if you get it too squishy, the spiral pattern might not work quite so well. You could probably split the difference and get, you know, the spiral down to maybe there and here. So it still takes up most of the scene, but then you can get the horizon line to maybe just enough where the seed is breaking the horizon line. You know, I'm trying to think of just finding a middle ground between the two of them so you don't have to, you know, redo a lot. I'm not sure how you're taking this. I hope you're taking it this way because I think it would be cool. And that is that this light is shining up from the ground. So we have, I don't know what color you're thinking. I have green here right now. So there's light shining up from the ground. And, you know, it's breaking through the ground there. And that's the magic. And everything is sort of spawning off of this. So the first thing that happens is that life springs up all along the spiral. So you basically see the spiral because that's where all the green is. And then there's light shining up from the ground, illuminating it. So you got this beautiful transition of color from light to, you know, whatever your yellow color is here, then up to your green, all the way around. So there's this beautiful glow around the whole thing. And then there, it starts being filled in, right? Smaller stuff starts filling in the in-betweens from the inside out. So this area could be green, and then a little less green, a little less green. Out here is basically just dirt, and then you have some of the green from the spiral itself. And then in here is where you have your colors, right? And here is where you have your beautiful flowers, and you have extra colors. Then a bit less, and a bit less as it goes out from there. I think that right there could be a really fantastic image. It would convey things very well. It's very beautiful to look at because of the amount of color. The spiral, the choice of using the spiral was exactly the right choice. Because, I mean, I even talked about it earlier. It has a natural sense of nature to it, of unfolding, and good choice. The background, yeah, let's keep it pretty nondescript. Make sure that whatever this is looks really old. Nobody lives in it. So instead of light lidded windows, you probably want dark. Right? You want dark, like nobody lives here anymore. This is, remember this, in the game context, this would be something that was completely cursed or corrupted. And this, this thing is falling apart. And there's wood sticking out. It's been completely burned or cursed, and there's, smoke coming off of it maybe. I'm just trying to think of some way to make it look like really, really not in good shape. This is not a hospitable place. So, there you go. Cool stuff, Brianna. Looking forward to seeing the final, really am. We had another question here, doesn't? Catherine asks, what is your favorite ice cream flavor? That's awfully random, Catherine. But one of my favorites is cookies and cream. I like crunchy things. I like crunchy things in my ice cream. So cookies and cream has the natural little, cookie bits. So I do like that. I do like salted caramel, pistachio, but probably one of the favorite that I've ever had was a boysenberry pie ice cream, because essentially just had a boysenberry pie that was all crumpled up and mixed into the ice cream. So you had bits of boysenberry and the kind of the taste from that, and then the crunch from the crust with the natural vanilla of the ice cream. That's also one of my favorites. Bonus question: who are some of your artistic heroes and why? Oh man, I've got a lot of artistic artists that I admire in their work. Let's see. I cover this in a decent amount in an old video of favorite art books. I talk about that, favorite art books and influences. So you have to go back to my old videos to see that, but I do cover that there. Some of them would be just off the top of my head. Classic art is John Singer Sargent. Waterhouse is also one of my favorites. Other ones, the more modern artists, in the comics field, I love Mike Mignola, who created Hellboy, and his very minimal, sort of stark style. I love the work of Adam Hughes is beautiful. Traditional painting, I love Richard Schmid. Shoot, I could just go on and on. Craig Mullins, digital painting. First guy that really knocked my socks off with what can be done with digital painting. I love his stuff. I almost want to do a whole episode where I just run you through like top 50. Good question though. Good question. We'll save the last one. We'll cover the last one here in a little bit. Is there another image? Yeah. Anna. Okay. Brandon says, all great advice. You're right about me struggling with horizon line and spiral perspective. Yeah, you'll get it. You'll work it out. If you want, make sure you look up some reference images. I'm trying to think, like, if you look up a reference image of I was trying to think of somewhere that had a big circle that you could see, from the photo that you could look down on. I'm almost like thinking if you could find a photo of a hedge maze and that would help you find the perspective because it's built. They do hedge mazes and grids usually, and then you can almost adapt your perspective based on that photo. Um, that would be one of the directions I would consider. Okay, Anna. All right, Anna, you're going immediately with that pop of green, and that's great. I'm glad to see you're not timid about that. And going obviously very bright with the seed, which is fine. I'm like, if you handle the lighting right, the seed could be completely white as long as you get that nice seed shape, and that would work. What's kind of holding that back right now is the fact that the background is so light. Now, I'm not saying that it needs to be dark, and I'm not saying that it needs to be nighttime, anything like that. But if you were to at least say that it's, more cloudy, I'm going to do this, set that to multiply, run a gradient. There we go. So there, if we just tone that down a bit, then what we can do is erase that out, and boom, the seed shows up so much better. Yeah, now we got a glow. And we can get a linear light layer, linear dodge, sorry. And then, looks like you're going towards the green side. It helps if you switch over to brush. Yeah, amazing. So then, if you have a more mid-tone background to work from, you can shift the light source to actually being colorful. Because if you get, see, the thing is, the closer you get to white, the less color you can actually have. Because, I mean, just look at it, right? There's not enough chroma. There's not enough value there to tint in order to have any color. So you have to shift it towards mid-tone more in order to get more color out of the color. And that's what we can do there with something like that. We're just reaching down, get more color there. That would be one of the first things I'm thinking of. This is sort of a split for me. Now, if you want to do it this way, I'm not going to tell you to change it. But I feel like maybe this is the seed, and then, or is this the plant? I feel like there's a seed coming out of a seed, essentially. I feel like this looks like a seed, then that's coming up, and then there's that thing in it. So, I don't know. I think you should go with it. I'm overthinking it. Don't do it. It's a good idea. I like the idea of this shape and this thing coming out of it. But with this, let's just look at that shape for a second. I think that's probably what it is. I think the shape bothers me more than the idea of it. So the shape is just a little too human. It feels like that, somebody's just like putting their arms out and going, hey. So let's try to get a bit more of a, what would leaves do? How can you use leaves to do it? And let's try to use 3 of them instead of 2. 2 immediately makes it look like arms. So what we want is to use 3 of them somehow. And then we got this nice twist here. So let's continue the twist. You've got twist doing this, twist doing that. So you could have a leaf coming up here and doing that, right? And then you have another leaf starting on that side, wrapping around up there. And then you have a leaf starting on the other side and doing that sort of thing. I meant to bring that in a bit more. There we go. So there we can have the leaves, and we can have that still setting in here just nicely. And it continues that nice spiral shape. And we could even have like the idea that other leaves fell off in order to reveal this thing. And that's a good way to show some motion in this scene. So you got these fluttering leaves. Or not leaves, I guess they're petals. Probably petals. That are kind of coming off of it, right? Or maybe they're just floating off to the side. Like there's like expands out. That would be neat. I don't know, I've seen that before. So essentially these things are all just expanding off of this, kind of creating an aura around it. And then that would be really nice because each one of them could catch the light. Boom, you have the beautiful beautiful light being caught by the insides of these. And then the ones that are being backlit, you know, they could be a bit darker. So the ones that are closer to us. And again, these are all ideas. I'm just trying to get you to consider some stuff. I'm not saying that these are the changes you need to be making. So, you know, you could go that sort of direction. That could be cool. Let's play this up even more. So I like this is neat. It feels a little... It feels like you just drew that without regard to the shape of the thing. So down here, let's have them more coming out of that, all right? And then we can show some that came out the other side. Plenty that came out the other side as well. You know, coming out like this. Or if you're going to do this, then try to follow the curvature a bit more of the seed shape. Help fill out that volume some. This is good. I love the spreading because you're using that radial lines with how it's spreading. Thumbs up. Love it. Color. Make sure that we're not getting too stuck. You can definitely be green based. And if you don't want to get too far from green, that's fine. But we do want to work in maybe as far as doing... Like if you want, this seems like a cooler scene. You're mainly dealing with grays, blues, and greens. So maybe you get some, you know, blue flowers over here, and then a bit more yellow. And you know that's it. You don't necessarily need to make you all the way to like red flowers. That seems like it would break up your color scheme, maybe a bit too much. Also consider maybe this shell thing could be a slightly different color. Or maybe it could have a transition of color, right? Or maybe it has its own light source. Again, we're trying to make this magical. So maybe it has like a blue light coming up from the bottom on it. Yeah, some ideas there. Yeah, that sort of thing on the background. Let's make sure it's painted and not just flat tones. I think you just use flat tones to block it in, and that's fine. But if there is like mist out there, then that is going to be fuzzier. That mist is going to fuzz up the edges, so make sure we don't have too much harshness on those back there. Yeah, that's it. Anna, good direction. I like your concept. Let's just get it, push it a bit further, expand out the palette. See if we can do something a bit more interesting with the leaves up at the top. Drop that back value back here so we can get more color into the image. Yeah. Okay, got some comments. Isn't Craig Mullins living out in Hawaii too? Oh, Matt, he might be. I don't know. That I do not know. Hey, Bobby, how's it going? Bobby says, how are you doing, man? I'm doing good. I'm moving back to the States. Well, I'm in the States, but I'm moving back to the mainland States next week. We gotta meet up. Oh no, I don't know. Check to see what our schedules are. Are you still in the DFW area? If so, I'm gonna be down there visiting family during Christmas time, and we have to just, I don't know, meet up and chat and talk about doing YouTube and everything. So that would be fun. Let me know. Aurelie asks, I think that the sun's not... I think that's the sun, not the seed. The seed should be the thing on the ground. Yeah, you may be right. In which case, I'm not a big fan of that because the seed is supposed to be floating. And I think it's a bit more interesting if this is the shell of the seed and then the thing grew out of it and the magical seed comes up out of it. Yeah. So, hopefully they take it that direction, but hey, it's their image. We'll see. I think Bobby Chu's last interview with Craig Mullins had him living out there. Oh, you're probably right then. I did not watch that interview, so I don't know. Didn't we have another question? Or did I close that? Michaela had asked, best ways or tips on getting over fears for showing your works to peers. Point of this being to get feedback on how to improve design or pose or composition. Michaela, that is a completely normal fear, all right? It's, or I would say concern. Everybody has a little hang up of posting their stuff out for a review. The easiest way is just to do it, but also go into it with the right mindset. So, at least with the Swatches group, I rarely have ever, if I've ever seen anyone be mean to anyone. I've definitely seen people disagree and say, I think it should go this direction. But I've never seen anybody be mean. So I'm going to tell you that is very unlikely. Generally, people, at least in the Swatches community, and I'm going to say art community in general, is pretty supportive. Like, we're all here to love art. And occasionally you're going to run across a jerk who just says something mean to you. But it's pretty unlikely. So, let's just kind of calm your fears on that and realize that we will all get that at some point, but it's not because of you. And it's not going to be because of your work. It's going to be because that person's a jerk. Now, I get that sometimes. Occasionally somebody says something that's, it's not even constructive criticism. It's mean criticism. But I kind of just chalk it up to, all right, every, say, 100 times I get feedback on something, one person is going to be a jerk. And it doesn't have anything to do with me. That's just the jerk tax. Right? If you want feedback, you can get 100 feedbacks, but every 1 out of 100, you're going to have to listen to a jerk. That's part of the deal. So you can immediately, you see their stuff, you can just write that off and say, I don't know what's going on in their life. I have pity for them because obviously they seem very unhappy. But that out of the way, the other thing is your work is a work in progress. Your art is a work in progress. And you're never going to reach the point where your image can't be improved. All of my stuff can be improved. Most of the stuff I know what to do to improve it, but I probably ran out of time. But yeah, just do it. And then I think once you get some good experiences, that will help. And the other thing is, they don't know what your vision is and what your skills is and what you want to do with the image. And ultimately, it's up to you. I mean, go out there and you listen to the advice and you take what's good and you discard what's not and you let that make you better and you move on. So it's a great way to improve because we all have blind spots. We all miss things. Maybe you make things too warm. You make things too cool. Some people paint images that are too desaturated. Some people, paint images that are too saturated. And other people can notice those things and help us out. So see it as an opportunity to improve. In fact, go into it thinking, this could be one of the best keys for my art improving that I ever make use of. It's a fantastic resource that unfortunately a lot of people don't want to make use of. It goes into the whole fear of failing, but the fact is, you determine if it fails or not them. So, yeah, maybe that piece didn't do what you want, you do it again. You can do it again as many times as you want. You only fail when you stop trying to make it live up to your expectations. You don't owe them anything. So on a bunch of ideas on that. So hopefully some of that, all of that might help you out. Yeah. Okay, that's it for this particular episode live stream. Any other things that I was needing to bring up? Let's see. Yeah, 2 weeks. No live stream next week. Skipping going into another week. I forget when that comes out on the calendar. It's the 7th of December. I can't believe it's going to be December already. Wow, okay. But, yep, there we go. And feel free, of course, to post your stuff out on the group and get feedback from them if you want to get some feedback in the meantime. I will be doing a lot of packing and stuff, so I'm not sure how much I'll be out there. But I will also be putting out the best art advice on drawing faces. So take a look for that. That'll be coming out in the next couple of days. And hope you'll go out there and watch that. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And I will catch you next time. Until then, keep drawing.